Hi, I'm Julia Hankins, and I help children's yoga teachers become more confident and more organized and just feel better about themselves so they can teach yoga to more children and change the world. And today's video is all about after school restraint collapse and what it means for you in your kids' yoga business if you teach after school classes. So recently I was delivering a training and I was chatting to some yoga teachers, and they were talking about how difficult it is in their after school yoga classes to engage the children, and how sometimes they come in and they're up here and their emotions are all over the place. And we were chatting about after school restraint collapse, and this is a term that they hadn't really heard. And I thought, well, I'll share this information with you in case it's something that can help you. So in this video, I'll be sharing all about what after school restraint collapse is, how it can impact your kids yoga lesson if it's an after school one, and also how you can help to support the children in your care. So let's go straight into it. What is after school restraint collapse? So the term was coined originally by Andrea Lowen-Nair, who's a parenting educator and expert and a counsellor. And I'll link into this video and also the blog a link to a article that she wrote all about it. So it's not me that's created it. I'm just sharing with you some really useful things that she talks about. And so what it means basically is this idea that children are holding it together all day in school. School is a really intense environment for many children, particularly those who are neurodiverse. Children are holding it together all day, and even those that aren't necessarily neurodiverse, they're still trying to behave in a certain way, to follow the rules, to fit into the constraints of the school, to listen, to be good, to not show their emotions necessarily. And so they may be holding and repressing those emotions all day and containing it all for fear of being told off, or fear of embarrassment, or just not feeling comfortable enough to share their feelings. And so what happens is this all just holds together, and they're holding it together, and then by the end of the day, Andrea describes it as like a bubble waiting to burst. And so what can happen when these children go home is that they're very explosive and they can be very emotional, and all of the things comes out that they've been holding together all day long. And so the term after school restraint collapse usually refers to this after school meltdown or dysregulation that happens after school when children go home. After teaching kids yoga in after school classes for many years, I can tell you that I experienced this very same thing within a yoga lesson. And I don't know if it's because they're feeling safe and comfortable, or if it's just because they're very overwhelmed with the fact that they've been holding it together all day. But quite often I'll experience in my after school classes children not being able to hold it together anymore. And so what might this look like in your after school class? Well, it may look like children who are very quick to tears. It may look like children who are very outbursts of emotion, quick to anger, a bit of aggression maybe. Or you might see children zimming around, like got the zoomies like a cat at 3 a.m. or something. Explosive energy, lots of loudness, lots of a lot. So you may come to your yoga class feeling really calm and like ready to deliver this really chill session, and then bam, in come the children, and they're like blah, blah, running around everywhere, and it's all insane. And so that could be after school restraint collapse. It could be that they've just been holding it together, they've been behaving themselves all day, they've been fitting in with a routine, they've been doing what they should do all day long, and now they just want to release. It's like a coiled spring that's just, blah, all over the place. So how can we support the children in our classes when they're experiencing this? And also, how can we make it a nice, calm experience for everybody else? Because, we don't really want our kids' yoga lessons to just be like absolute chaos with children running around everywhere. So I found found it really interesting when I was reflecting on an article that Andrea had written, because she talks about 7 things that you can do in your home to support children who are experiencing after school restraint collapse. And I realized that so many of them I was just naturally doing in my kids yoga classes anyway, and I'm sure many of you already are too. So I thought it might be helpful to go through those things, the 7 things that Andrea suggests, and talk about how they link to yoga. So firstly, she says to reconnect positively. And so connecting with children at the beginning of the yoga class is really important. So ensuring positive eye contact, smiles, using the child's name, speaking to them individually, and allowing all children to have a little bit of space to be able to talk and share information. And so what that might look like in your session is it could be that you just chat to them one-on-one as they're coming in and getting themselves ready and mentioning them by their name, asking them how their day was, or just chatting to them about anything random and connecting with them. Another thing that I really like to do at the start of my kids yoga classes in after school situations is have a little circle time, so allowing children to take it in turns to talk or share something if they want to, and giving them that space. So connecting positively with you and with the other children that are in the group. She also talks about creating space. So I always make sure that within my yoga class, I've created some space for the children to just be on their own, for them to connect with themselves. And so this might look like a relaxation story. It may look like playing with some putty, some therapy putty. It might look like creating a mandala with gems or stones or shells or colouring or something like that. But having their own mat is really important for this as well. So having their own defined space for themselves to reconnect with themselves. So creating space. And just a word on this is usually in yoga sessions, that sort of activity may happen at the end of the session. And sometimes you may feel that it's appropriate to bring those things forward and start the session with that. You may feel like children are actually really overwhelmed here and I need to bring them down before we begin. And so sometimes it's really nice to mix it up and have a little relaxing story at the beginning, or a little snuggle under a blanket, them just lying down for a few minutes listening to some calm music before you begin. And that may be a nice way of starting. So as long as they've got some space created for themselves within the session at some point, it's really powerful. And being free about when you do that. It could be at the beginning, it could be at the middle, or at the end. So another thing that Andrea talks about is feeding them. And my after school clubs were, for the most part, in a school setting. And so I asked the children to bring an extra snack with them, and obviously a water bottle, encouraging them to bring something like fruit or vegetables or something like that. It may be possible for you to provide a snack yourself as part of your after school class. I know that it can work really effectively to have some nice drinks and some nice snacks and some kind of sharing circle. I have a friend who runs an after school club on a Friday, and she has, like, the snack is quite a big part of it, and the children preparing their snacks and talking. But food is a really good way of helping the children to kind of refuel, so that anyone who's feeling a bit hangry, that's all dealt with. And I'd recommend that for you too, making sure that you've had a nice snack and a nice drink so that you're regulated, ready for the class too. So feeding them, making sure they've got a drink, but always being aware of like dietary restrictions or requirements or any allergies and things like that if you are providing any snacks for the children. Another thing that Andrea talks about is reducing clutter or noise. So ideally, it's good to get into a space before the children get there and set up the space so that it's inviting. It's the children want to come and see, oh, what's that on my mat? but it's not too over stimulating. There's not like, 3 different props on different mats and stuff in the middle and stuff at the edge and lots of IKEA bags everywhere. It's good if you can create this really neat area that's clear and inviting for the children, but not too overstimulating. Now, I know that can't always happen. Sometimes in some of the after school situations I had, I would arrive and have to go and collect the children and then take the children to the space. And so I'd have to set up while they were there. But just making sure that you don't have too much clutter in the space and that it's a clear defined area that's not too overwhelming. And in my Props Like a Pro training, I talk all about using props and how to manage the props so that they're not overwhelming too, because it can be too much. So another thing that Andrea talks about is staying connected within the school day, within the day. And this she's talking to as a parent with her own children. She talks about connection bridges, so things like little notes in a lunchbox or something like that, so that the child feels connected to the adult throughout the school day. Now, that's not really applicable to us kids yoga teachers. It'd be a bit weird if we were writing love notes to our children in our class to have in their lunchbox. But the way I think of this with connection is teaching the children skills so that they can stay connected with themselves. So quite often in my after school classes, I will talk to them about how they're feeling and about how sometimes school can be very overwhelming and about how they can manage to stay connected with themselves within the school day. So that could be teaching them little skills like, like a self-hug, like abdominal breathing, or one hand on the chest and one hand on the belly, or a particular breathing technique. So teaching them a way of staying connected with themselves throughout the school day, because ultimately that's what we want the children to learn, isn't it? We want to teach them skills so that they can stay connected to themselves in difficult situations. Another thing that Andrea talks about is providing decompression time. So decompression could look different depending on whatever the emotions are that are happening at that time. So it could be that the children actually need a lot of high energy, high impact. So maybe they need a warm up that's really quite, exciting and lots of energy and high powered. Or it could be that their decompression is something a bit more relaxing and they need something like some deep tissue squeezing of themselves or self-massage or a relaxation. So it really depends on how they come to you as to what their decompression is, and actually across the class, your yoga class will be providing this decompression time. So hopefully what happens is they come in to you from school and they're up here, and then they leave and they're nice and chilled. But having a conversation with the children and involving them in the way that your after school class is going is really useful here. So I might say to the children, what, you seem a little tired. Would you like to start with a relaxation today? Or you seem a little wired. Should we start with something a bit more, active to start us off? So involving the children in that and feeding off their energy and providing what it is they need. So that's decompression time. And then the last thing that Andrea mentions, which I'm sure you're all already doing in your kids yoga classes, and that's have fun. So giggling is a really great way of releasing tension. In fact, giggling it releases tension in much the same way as crying does. And so including lots of fun activities in your yoga class is really important and exactly what they need. And really, that's what we want our kids yoga classes to be, isn't it? Lots of fun and an opportunity for them to connect with themselves. So I hope that this little video helped you to understand a little bit more about what after school restraint collapse is and how it may look in your kids yoga class, and some things that you may like to consider including in your class. I'd love to know, do you already do some of these? Is there anything that I've mentioned today that you hadn't considered that you're going to give a try? And do you have any questions about what I've been talking about? So if you have any specific issues with your after school classes or any other aspect of your kids yoga business, I run mentoring sessions as one-off sessions and also as longer mentoring programs. So if there's anything that you'd like to talk through with me, email me at julia@juliahankins.co.uk. And then if you don't have the financial capacity right now to work with me, you could still send me your question and I might be able to answer it in one of these videos. So reach out to me or comment on here, and I'd love to hear how things are with your after school yoga classes. And do you experience after school restraint collapse? And what do you do for it too? If you're interested in learning more about behavior, there's a video that I'm going to link in here that's all about behavior in your yoga classes. I also have a little blog about that. I've got a freebie called Get Real with Rules. So if you'd like to know more about using rules in your kids yoga class, then that might be for you. Or you may find the training Tame the Crowd really useful too. And I'll link that in the description of this video. But I hope you found that really helpful, and I'd love to know your thoughts.